K. Rool, this thick, obnoxious crocodile, cemented himself as the arch nemesis of Donkey Kong after his introduction in 1994's Donkey Kong Country. And he goes by many different titles: King K. Rool, Captain K. Rool, Baron K. Roolenstein, and can range from menacing to comical. This character is a charming one, and has a pretty dedicated fan base that have asked me to make this video for over 2 years now. So I decided to make this video for that reason and that reason alone.
The lie detective determined that was a lie.
Welcome to Origin Oracle, the K. Rool edition. We head back to 1994 to the release of one of the most groundbreaking games of all time, Donkey Kong Country. Donkey Kong was back with these crazy 3D pre-rendered graphics being optimized in 2D environments to blow the minds of 90s kids while reintroducing DK in a new way. Donkey Kong Country starred a brand new younger DK, this time not worried about kidnapping damsels because that was so last decade. Instead, this DK only had bananas on his mind, and protecting his stash is key. So if DK is no longer the aggressor, who would bother such an innocent ape and his boy, Cancelled Kong?
Alhamdulillah with my billions, pal.
Let's head into the manual to find out. It's actually 4 full pages of text. I won't read the entire thing, but I will say I miss when we had manuals like this. It was a dark and stormy night, and storms lashed the terrain of Donkey Kong Island, home of the famous video game ape and his family and friends. Near Donkey Kong's treehouse, a small monkey named Diddy cowers in fear of this savage lightning in the area. He was assigned by Donkey Kong to be on guard duty. "Okay, little buddy," Donkey said in his patronizing voice, "as part of your hero training, you've got to stand guard tonight over my bananas. I'll relive you at midnight." Buddy? Yeah, right. Now he was alone. I've said this in a previous video, but I always had this impression DK and Diddy Kong were like the best of friends in the original game, but this just feels like a one-sided relationship. Anyway, plot twist. Diddy gets jumped by crocodiles.
Get him up, let him get up, let him get up, let him get up.
And this group of reptilians are known as the Kremlings, who stash Diddy in a barrel and make off in their Kremling carts with the entirety of Donkey Kong's banana horde. Also, DK is an awful friend, because he wakes up in the morning and proudly says, "Morning already? I slept through my watch." Yeah, forget about your friend here. So DK's grandfather, Cranky Kong, wakes him up and lets him know what the Kremlings have done, which kicks off the entire adventure. And I still love the fact that there's a lore-based reason as to why Diddy is in this barrel at the beginning of the game. So with any villain group, there must be a leader to these crocs, being led by none other than King K. Rool, whose appearance is left a secret until the end of the game. I always love guessing what the final boss in games would look like before we had people on Twitter spoiling it on day 1. Despite the secrecy, King K. Rool's silhouette and name are in the manual. King K. Rool, the supreme commander of the Kremlings and mastermind of the banana heist. So being a mastermind in the background doesn't give him much room for character development here. So while DK and Diddy battle it out with the Kremlings, let's see how this arch nemesis was created. As many of you probably know, development for Donkey Kong Country was outsourced by Nintendo to a talented British gaming studio named Rareware. The team was fully responsible for the development and revamping of the Donkey Kong license, with them proposing DK's new look to Nintendo for approval, as well as the new creative direction for the franchise. Greg Mayles was the lead designer for the title at Rare. Mayles and another artist, James Ryman, got to work on concepts for K. Rool, who started off with the name Crud, coupled with a much more realistic crocodile face than his final design. He'd go through several other names like King Clinker, who would have been joined by his wife Queen Crap. Still not too late to bring her into the next DK title, I'm just saying. Then at some point, he was named Commander K. Rool, which seems to be the first version of the K. Rool name. Greg Mayles was pretty active on Twitter at one point and was very open about providing all of these interesting tidbits and behind the scenes facts. And someone did ask the question that mattered: what does the K stand for? To which he replied, nothing.
The deception!
It was just a way of making him seem more important, that he'd add it to inflate his ego. In hindsight, it could have been something tonal like Kremling, or something deliberately out of character like Keith. What do you reckon it should stand for? Leave your suggestions in the comments. But they finally landed on King K. Rool, his name clearly being a pun on cruel, and his final appearance kept his cape and crown and that armored golden underbelly, but I wasn't supposed to tell you that because it's a surprise for the end of the game. So DK and Diddy battle through 6 worlds, taking on 6 bosses to get their bananas back. And as I'm going through this, it dawned on me that none of the bosses in this game are technically Kremlings, like Master Neki here, who may be working for K. Rool, but you'll never be one of them. But the final level of the game is Gangplank Galleon, where Donkey Kong and Diddy corner King K. Rool and face off with him once and for all. I always thought it was cool that they corner him on a pirate ship. It just has that implication he was trying to escape. And the desperation here is real because this guy resorts to throwing his crown charging back and forth, dropping cannonballs from the crow's nest of the ship, and the music is just mwah. You can only damage him when he throws the crown off his head, but with enough hits, he goes down and the credits roll. Oh look, Commander is King K. Rool. Nice callback. But yes, in one of the biggest fake outs in gaming, he gets right back up and whips out all new attacks. Even though we don't see K. Rool throughout the game, everything about this battle frames him as this goofy, menacing trickster of an enemy. But despite his ingenuity, DK is victorious and gets his bananas back. So that was the end to this classic, and considering how much of a hit it was back in the day, there was no doubt that K. Rool wouldn't stay down for long. But of course, they had to make a portable version of the game first. Donkey Kong Land for the Game Boy released in summer 1995, where K. Rool once again returns as the villain. Now, I want to say this is just a portable version of Donkey Kong Country, but it's different enough to be its own thing, with some new worlds, different level design, and a great soundtrack for the Game Boy that makes it worth playing on its own. And story-wise, it's even framed as a sequel to Donkey Kong Country. Only found in the manual, this game mainly occurs because Cranky Kong thinks DK and Diddy were in a successful game just because of the fancy graphics.
Back in our days, understand, we had an extremely limited color palette to work with, and we still made great games.
So DK and Diddy fire back, saying they could star in a successful game even without all the flashy visuals. Cranky takes this bet so seriously that he literally calls up K. Rool to steal the banana horde again just to set the stage for another adventure. So that means King K. Rool is once again the final boss, but instead of being on Gangplank Galleon, he's waiting for DK in Big Ape City, the fourth and final world of Donkey Kong Land. No, I'm not gonna do it. No theories today. Do you think New Donk City used to be called Big Ape City at one point? The manual says, the sight of that familiar skyline might bring back some fond memories, but don't waste your time sightseeing when there are Kremlings around. We see this same city in Donkey Kong 94 for the Game Boy, so if these are the same city, then... Alright, let me stop. This video is about K. Rool. There's not much to say about this last battle, as it's pretty much the same as the K. Rool fight in Donkey Kong Country, just in a city setting. I just find it funny that Cranky has K. Rool on speed dial to set all of this up, just to prove a point. But our boy K. Rool would return in a big way later that same year, in November of 1995, with the official sequel to Donkey Kong Country, Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest. Now we're cooking. I can't put my finger on why, but I think this is the game that really cemented K. Rool's character, so let's dive in. So sometime after getting his bananas back, DK is now sprawled out on the beach, sipping his banana milkshake while Cranky lectures him for sitting on his ass all day. Even stars get time off, DK says, and then immediately gets kidnapped. Which just leaves Diddy and his new flame Dixie Kong to investigate. Luckily, they find a note on his destroyed beach chair.
To the yeller-bellied, land-loving Kong family, ha! We've got the big monkey. If you want him back, you scurvy dogs, you'll have to hand over the banana horde. Captain K. Rool.
Thanks, TheMentok, for saving me the embarrassment of having to read that again.
Profit turns. You know what I'm saying?
So with his updated job title, Captain K. Rool and the Kremlings have DK hostage. But instead of handing over their bananas, Diddy and DK walk up to Crocodile Isle to beat the shit out of the Kremlings instead. Maybe that's why this game is my favorite of the bunch. Diddy and Dixie are cutthroat, and the continuity here is pretty awesome. The first game ended with Gangplank Galleon, with K. Rool trying to flee DK Island. And this game starts on Gangplank Galley at the main port of Crocodile Island, with Diddy and Dixie kicking off their assault. From the moment the game starts, it already feels different from the first in all of the best ways. You're now in enemy territory, which explains the sinister lighting, the darker tones of the music, with some of the best in the series, by the way. David Wise, hats off to you. Even the whole pirate theme itself lends to the darker tone of the game, with all the Kremlings going all in on K. Rool's little cosplay party. The manual adds a ton of flavor to this. The leader of the pack is back, and this time he's packing a blunderbuss. Ouch. So in addition to these little blurbs about K. Rool and the Kremlings, there's also some lore about their home, Crocodile Island. They mentioned Gangplank Galleon was scuttled at the port after the first game, but though it's no longer seaworthy, there's a Kremling crew that still mans it. Or Kremque.
Key.
Or Kremke, where another Kremling galleon was sunk. Apparently this area used to be a port for Crocodile Island, but now is just a swamp. Crazy Kremland is the place where Kremlings go for fun when they're not terrorizing the Kongs. And not only is this place fun, it's haunted.
Oh shit!
The ghosts must have come from the next area, Gloomy Gulch, where evil Kremling spirits like Cloak and Cackle await. Again, props for the continuity here on the hauntings between these two areas. It's like the amusement park was built on a Kremling burial ground. Finally, beyond all of that is K. Rool's Keep, where Captain K. Rool is holding Donkey Kong. And reading this section of the manual just comes off as a Legends of the Hidden Temple episode, and I love it.
If you escape,
you might have a chance to enter the tomb of ancient kings.
90s kids stand up. But there are some hints about K. Rool as a person in the game as well. Cranky's wife, Wrinkly Kong, runs an academy on Crocodile Island called Kong College, an admirable effort of Wrinkly trying to provide education to the Kremlings. This is where the player would come to save or spend banana coins for advice from her. And she mentions in a piece of her dialogue that K. Rool is a student of hers.
When you see Captain K. Rool, can you ask him if he's done his homework?
And I have to wonder what this class is like with a Kong teaching a room full of Kremlings. So after tearing through the entire island, Diddy and Dixie storm K. Rool's keep, and they bust into the main stronghold. It's time for the final battle. K. Rool fakes us out yet again, whisking away DK while fleeing to his airship, the Flying Croc. But it's not long before they corner Captain K. Rool, and we see DK strung up and being shot at point blank.
I'm fighting for my life!
But this fight is awesome. K. Rool has a larger arsenal at his disposal this time, centered around this blunderbuss, firing cannonballs, smoke clouds, and vacuum-powered suck attacks. The game seems to double down on K. Rool's use of modern engineering, between his airship, the tech behind his blunderbuss, and even the amusement park on Crocodile Island. Maybe this is what Wrinkly's been teaching him this whole time. But after a tough battle, Diddy and Dixie take him down. DK gets his revenge punch, and K. Rool goes flying. But the game isn't actually over. They're collectibles called Krem Coins, which gives the player access to the Lost World. Very difficult bonus levels that gradually lead the player toward this mysterious glowing geyser at the center of the realm, called the Crocodile Core. Soaked and covered in reeds, Captain K. Rool isn't finished. I love this little detail. But being seasoned adventurers at this point in time, Diddy and Dixie make quick work of him, sending him into the core and defeating him once and for all. But as DK, Diddy, and Dixie celebrate their victory, they watch him sail into the sunset. Captain K. Rool literally gets the last laugh. I think this game did so much for this character that it almost feels like it's more about him and the Kremlings than the Kongs, which is beautifully played considering the tone of the game. But I'd argue there's another medium at that time that was responsible for kids' early perception of King K. Rool, and that was the Donkey Kong Country television series.
Yes? Can we help you?
Yes, this show was an absolute goldmine for memes. Zany moments, random songs about literally anything.
Looky here, look what I got! Don't think I won't let little Diddy drop!
Hold it now, hold it now, hold it right there!
And its poorly aged animation. I would even argue this didn't look good at the time. I always remember this didn't feel right to me as a kid. But it's culturally significant for the Donkey Kong series. It was launched first in France in September of 1996, with an interesting take on the Donkey Kong Country lore. The show ran for 3 seasons and didn't officially air in America until 1998, well after the completion of the Donkey Kong Country series. But Donkey Kong takes on a similar laid-back, sarcastic personality that's depicted in the game manuals, as he's thrust into the responsibility of being the future leader for Congo Bongo Island, after finding a magic orb called the Crystal Coconut. The show follows his everyday adventures with the rest of the Kongs, plus a few original Kongs created just for the series. I have a separate video that goes deeper into how this show was made, but in classic fashion, K. Rool is constantly trying to steal the Crystal Coconut to gain the power to conquer the island. Voiced by Ben Campbell, he's exactly what you'd expect from the Donkey Kong Country games brought into a cartoon format.
Hello, I'm King K. Rool.
Yeah, they pronounce his name Cruel, which had me second guess myself as a kid. But for this format, there aren't any major surprises. It's similar to what you would see for most cartoons at that time, with much of it being self-contained episodes with K. Rool scheming a plan that's thwarted by DK. But there is one episode in Season 3 called Best of Enemies, which explore the idea that Cranky Kong and King K. Rool were once the best of friends. But after K. Rool cheated in a contest, they had a falling out. So the episode has DK and Diddy attempt to rekindle this friendship so K. Rool can stop trying to steal the Crystal Coconut. And their efforts work, but it ends up being more trouble than it's worth because Cranky and K. Rool with their repaired friendship are now causing chaos across the island, which leads DK and the rest of the Kongs to team up with the Kremlings to break them apart. All of this isn't canon to K. Rool lore, of course, but it's a fun idea and it's cool to see this animation as a whole still being talked about to this day. So yeah, between the games and the TV show, K. Rool was now synonymous with Donkey Kong in the mid to the late 90s, and the last game in the original Donkey Kong Country trilogy was no exception. Donkey Kong Country 3: Dixie Kong's Double Trouble, released for the Super Nintendo in 1996. As the title suggests, Dixie Kong would step into the leading role because this time, both DK and Diddy were kidnapped. Dixie finds Diddy's room empty, only with a short note left behind. Gone exploring the islands with DK. Back tomorrow, Diddy. So after some waiting, Dixie finds their disappearance to be strange and travels to the northern Cremisphere, consulting Funky Kong on their whereabouts. Though he hasn't seen them either, he suggests she takes the youngest Kong in the family, Kitty Kong, along with her, to lend her his strength. It's only then that they discover the Kremlings are up to something with their new master, Chaos. I have to wonder what the Kremlings' plan was here, because we don't hear anything about them stealing anything or holding DK and Diddy for ransom. They're just gone. So Dixie and Kitty confront this new leader in town, Chaos, a green robot who they have a brief brush with and battle until he flees. But in their search for DK and Diddy, our heroes corner Chaos in his castle. Yeah, this robot is no match for the Kongs.
Oh shit!
So it's revealed King K. Rool has been pulling the strings this whole time, and his first words to the Kongs are that his wife is going to kill him. We still have not seen this unnamed wife, but maybe someday. Maybe it's Queen Crap. But yes, he used all of her best pots and pans to build chaos. In his desperation, he once again takes on the Kongs as Baron K. Roolenstein. It turns out the plan here is world domination the whole time, so I guess by taking DK and Diddy out of the picture, he thought no one was going to stop him. So once again, Roolenstein uses some fancy tech at his disposal to fight back, complete with a copter pack and electric traps on the floor. But this doesn't help him avoid a good old barrel to the face. So DK and Diddy are now saved, and it's revealed that they were held captive in chaos the entire time. But like last time, Dixie's adventure isn't over, with her and Kitty discovering the lost world of Krematoa, where they will have to find 5 cogs that will allow them to access Nautilus, a submarine. They enter it to find the Baron once again, who's very annoyed at this point that they continue to spoil his plans. I don't know, this added dialogue, K. Rool seems just slightly bothered throughout the whole game. The plan this time around feels like just another Sunday instead of the higher stakes from Diddy's conquest, but maybe that's just me. So this leads into the secret boss battle with Roolenstein, who now has different attack patterns, switching between the background and foreground, making him less vulnerable. But the Kongs defeat him once again, and yes, he does escape. So the only thing left for Dixie and Kitty is to collect all the missing banana birds across the northern Cremisphere that were taken by Roolenstein. And in doing so, you unlock the final ending to the game, where the Banana Queen thanks the Kongs for finding her children. The day is saved, and with the Banana Queen now free, she opts to teach K. Rool a lesson by dropping an egg on him. So that ends the legendary Donkey Kong Country trilogy, a strong introduction to King K. Rool, who is now the official arch nemesis for Donkey Kong. And with Rare still creating magic with the Donkey Kong license at that time, DK would soon after step into the next chapter of his series, this time for the Nintendo 64, where he'd go on a 3D adventure for the very first time.
Here we go.
In November of 1999, Donkey Kong returned, complete with the rest of this DK crew on their biggest adventure yet. Or should I say, K. Rool's biggest heist yet. He and the Kremlings return in this new mechanical Crocodile Island since their last one, well, sank. So K. Rool intends to use this new weapon of mass destruction called the Blastomatic to destroy his adversary's island once and for all. But there's a problem. The Kremlings are dumb as f***. Right as they're preparing to fire, the island crashes, throwing everything into chaos. So to buy them precious time, K. Rool orders his goons to steal the banana horde again and kidnap DK's friends while they fix the Blastomatic. And it always threw me off the intro gassed up the DK crew for a whole 3 minutes, only for them to be captured immediately. But as long as DK is free, the whole situation can be undone, which leads him on a 3D collectathon adventure to find his bananas, save his friends, and stop K. Rool. Throughout the game, we see cutscenes of K. Rool just seething in his control room as DK continues to progress. But this is very much K. Rool, with him hiding out of sight until the absolute last moment. But it's funny that he's here getting the play-by-play, Bond villain style. For me, it's a welcome perspective, because whenever I played games back in the day, I always pictured the villains knew exactly what the hero was up to at all times. I wonder if it was a Lakitu here filming the whole thing. So while all this is happening, K. Rool is rushing his men to get the Blastomatic ready, and there's just so much going on in these intermission cutscenes. But because of the Kremlings meandering, they're caught slipping, or sleeping, when the Kongs arrive. It's time to fire the weapon. So it's a little horrifying as a kid to get a game over in this game. I mean, most game over screens had the potential to be chilling as a child, but this one has K. Rool laughing maniacally and repetitively as he fully fires the Blastomatic at DK Island. But that's only if you lose, loser. When he really tries to fire the weapon, DK and his friends already shut the power down, so K. Rool does what he does best and escapes. But this time, his old prisoner, K. Lumsy, freed by DK, trips and knocks him right out of the sky. It's time for the final battle. And K. Rool says, let's settle this like real gentlemen. Meet King Krusha K. Rool, a Kremling boxing legend, and this kicks off a 5-round final boss fight, each with a different Kong. It's funny because most of them don't really box at all, and the Kongs fight dirty. But in their defense, the judges are Kremlings, so no doubt this fight's pretty rigged. Rare went crazy with this battle though, because it's non-stop entertainment. These are his toes, by the way, if you're curious about those.
I didn't need to see that.
But it's Chunky Kong who delivers the final blow, knocking out Krusha K. Rool, ending Donkey Kong 64. Oh wait, no, Chunky, look out! Before Chunky died a gruesome death, Candy Kong arrives in... Sheesh, what is this game rated? E for everyone. Got it. So Candy Kong and Funky Kong arrive to help the others out, with Funky blasting K. Rool away. Peace returns to Donkey Kong Island. DK64 didn't add too many new things to K. Rool's character than what we already knew, but they doubled down on the idea that K. Rool couldn't care less about his crew, proven by K. Lumsey's imprisonment and K. Rool's remarks throughout the game mentioning that he's surrounded by idiots. But he's not wrong though. But this whole journey is worth it in the end for that final boss, which really cements K. Rool's dramatic extraness, and this whole game cements the Kremlings as the most animated and wacky villain group in the Nintendo family. This would be the last time we'd see K. Rool serve as the main antagonist in a proper mainline DK game for 26 years. A couple years after Donkey Kong 64, the rug was pulled from under the DK series as we knew it. Rare, the studio that had been building Donkey Kong's modern identity and K. Rool's entire character, was acquired by Microsoft to develop games for the launch of the Xbox. That means Nintendo suddenly lost the team that had been steering the ship for nearly a decade, and DK entered this awkward transitional phase, which led to some interesting choices. I hope you're enjoying this video. I'm interrupting it for a very important announcement. Switch cams, I now have a Patreon. Content creation is time consuming, and I feel like I'm neglecting my audience in a very, very significant way, but I'm busy editing. And I'm busy working on videos and writing scripts and all this stuff. I'm a one-man show, unfortunately. So I really want to start a Patreon, not only to bring more of you as members into a community where I can get feedback and just hold myself accountable and keep you guys informed. I want to put toward those funds toward a long-term editor, someone who can help me and be on the same page as me and have that same quality and mindset. My style of content, which has a lot of B-roll, takes a lot of detail-oriented work, and I really need to find someone to take that off my plate so that I can actually think of more ideas and expand on the channel as I'm approaching 100,000 subscribers. I don't want to stagnate and stick to the same idea over and over again. So this Patreon is the first step in taking the channel where I want it to go. I want the mission goal to be make Mentok another Scott the Woz or something like that. I don't know. Of course, this is all optional. I'm not forcing anyone to join this Patreon, but I have it starting at $2 a month. So of course, everyone will get their shout outs at the end of the video or during the video. So I humbly ask for your help, and otherwise, thank you for watching. Back to the video. Donkey Konga, a 2003 rhythm game with bongos. Real bongos. Nintendo made sure this thing was compatible with everything. It was hard not to see these sold used at every GameStop back in its time. But the game pushed K. Rool aside only to star in a whack-a-mole style minigame called Bash K. Rool. Is this just his DK64 model? To be fair, K. Rool's legacy was being kept alive by the Donkey Kong Country Game Boy Advance ports, bringing the Super Nintendo classics to a younger generation. A couple years later, Nintendo tried their hand at a full-on Donkey Kong adventure game of their own for the first time since Donkey Kong for the Game Boy. It was called Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, a day where DK woke up and chose violence against his enemies, competing to be king of the jungle, but unfortunately, K. Rool was completely missing, replaced by other Kongs. And I don't totally fault Nintendo for this decision. You're trying to start fresh and new villains are a good thing, but considering we never saw these Kongs again, it's clear that they didn't stick. But also in 2005, Nintendo tried something new for Donkey Kong on the Game Boy Advance. DK King of Swing, developed by Paon, or is it Paon? A climbing puzzle game that requires DK to swing and climb across pegboards to complete each level. And yes, this cute little title does have an adventure mode within it, with K. Rool returning as the main antagonist with a slight makeover, sporting a smaller crown and a modified cape. The Kongs are planning a huge festival known as the Jungle Jam, and in this festival a tournament takes place for different challenges where contestants are awarded medals, while the winner gets the title of Hero of the Jungle. But before the Kongs could kick off this whole thing, K. Rool swoops in with his new machine to steal all of the medals before the tournament can start. This makes him by default the Jungle Hero. This is such a Dr. Eggman coded moment.
Get a load of this!
But DK will travel through 4 regions swinging from board to board to get the medals back from K. Rool. And in the end, K. Rool challenges DK to yet another competition to climb more pegboards. But when he loses, he says that was simply practice. The real challenge is to fight it out on the pegboards. But DK is once again victorious, and after knocking his crocodile ass out, DK takes back all of the medals, becoming the official jungle hero. The game's plot is a simple one, but I still love this art design for a lower stakes, cuter DK game. We never really saw them drawn in this style again. This is the first time anyone outside of Rare wrote new dialogue for King K. Rool, so it's interesting to see how Payon kept him close to his Donkey Kong Country personality. Dramatic and petty, but it gave him more of a cartoonish edge for this lower stakes title. But King of Swing did well enough to warrant a sequel called DK Jungle Climber, this time for the Nintendo DS, released in 2007. While the gameplay is mostly the same, they cooked up a new plot for the title, with the Kong family heading to Sun Island for a nice vacation, where they spot this huge banana on top of a mountain. So when they head up to investigate, they find K. Rool and the Kremlings are stealing what's known as the crystal banana from an alien. Yes, we have full-blown aliens in the DK universe now. So the banana-shaped alien explains that he is Zananab from the planet Plantain, and he enlists the Kongs to help him retrieve the crystal banana back from K. Rool, a gem with ridiculous power. Explaining this plot, I forgot this game still is just DK climbing pegboards. So they spend the rest of the game going after K. Rool, but I was actually surprised at the amount of cutscenes here between levels. You'll even take on boss battles against the Kremlings during your pursuit. The game ends with the Kongs being warped to planet Plantain, where K. Rool intends to use the crystal banana's power to destroy the planet. This leads to the final confrontation with K. Rool, with him using the banana's power to grow to a massive size that fits on both DS screens. Perfect for climbing. So the Kongs climb their way to victory, whisking the crystal banana from K. Rool and returning peace to Zananab's planet. And in exchange, he awards them with bananas to take home, which I'm glad Diddy calls out as weird. Did Zananab just sell out his own people for the Kongs to eat? Maybe it's their young. As for K. Rool, he was sent out to space, and from this point on, would go missing for 11 years. Unless you count Donkey Kong's Barrel Blast for the Nintendo Wii, where he's a playable racer. It's a weird case, but this game, also developed by Payon, was originally planned for the GameCube with the bongo controller, but development shifted to the Nintendo Wii, so it kept that on-rails feel even without the bongos. This would be one of only 2 games where K. Rool is fully playable, the other being Mario Super Sluggers, and the roster even includes Kremlings as racers. Seeing people have found K. Rool's voice actor in the credits for Mario Kart World, maybe he'll be back in a racing game sooner than we think. Speaking of Mario Super Sluggers, this title came out in 2008, where K. Rool was invited to a sporting event by the Mario cast for the first and last time. I definitely think he's only here because the amount of players needed for baseball, but my guy comes out swinging with his jeweled scepter. I seriously need a follow-up to this game though. Okay, so it was after this game where K. Rool would disappear into the ether. But there was some hope when Nintendo made a surprise announcement at E3 that Donkey Kong would be returning with a brand new game, Donkey Kong Country Returns. This would launch for the Nintendo Wii in 2010, but DK faces a brand new enemy squad this time, the Tiki Tak Tribe. And as I said before, new villains are fine, even though this would have been a perfect return for K. Rool. But in 2014, there was a sequel called Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze for the Wii U. But again, no K. Rool. Just another hostile group of individuals called the Snowmans that ruined DK's birthday. And then after this, Donkey Kong games as a whole just went on hiatus, an 11-year hiatus. So if DK wasn't getting games, neither was K. Rool. But there was a speck of hope, a possibility this was all a long trick being played by K. Rool, biding his time to come back in a big way, until one day. A fully playable character in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, revealed in the most trolly way possible, but it's very fitting. K. Rool is one of the most obnoxious large characters in Smash. I gravitate to the speedsters and smaller characters most of the time, but this artwork alone had me jump on the K. Rool bandwagon. A whole fighting kit that beautifully ties together all his appearances from past games. The return of the blunderbuss and cannonballs, his copter pack, the throwing of his crown, even his final smash is him using the Blast-O-Matic. This was a well-deserved spot on the Smash roster, and I can only pray Dr. Eggman makes it in next time.
Why are you so upset?
But it was revealed by the director of Smash Bros., Masahiro Sakurai, that King K. Rool received a ton of votes on the Super Smash Bros. Fighter ballot that allowed fans to write in votes on who they'd want to see the most in the latest game. But it was around this time I learned the size of the fan base for this character alone. I've seen Twitter accounts counting down the days until the next K. Rool appearance, let alone the next DK game, and I totally get the sentiment. In a similar vein, we saw a ton of Donkey Kong love in the recent Super Mario Bros. Movie, with a whole jungle kingdom being explored in the film that fully sets the stage to expand on the Kongs as a whole, and by extension, a chance for K. Rool to make an appearance in that recently announced Donkey Kong spin-off as the main antagonist. I couldn't see any other person fitting the role for a movie like that. However, speaking of films, I'd be remiss not to mention the phenomenal fan animation DKC Return to Crocodile Isle by Alex Henderson Animation. Premiering in May of 2023, this animation sets the stage for the comeback of King K. Rool, attempting to fill the gaps of his disappearance up until his invitation to the Smash Brothers initiative. And like, I don't know what else to say about this animation other than how incredible it is. The art style, the sound design, the musical score, the writing. They even brought back Ben Campbell to voice K. Rool, and he did not miss a beat with this one. After all of these years, this is in fact his best performance as K. Rool yet. Even DK's voice actor from the television series Richard Yearwood makes a cameo. All I can say is go and watch this for yourself. If you haven't, it's a masterpiece and it deserves your view rather than me rehashing it in a mediocre way. And they rightfully pinned a comment pleading to Illumination to have them make their Donkey Kong spin-off, and I truly hope they do. I guess that's it, right? Donkey Kong Bananza. Even mentioning this game is a spoiler, but I think 4.5 weeks is well beyond the statute of limitations, considering I saw people discussing this on YouTube 4 days after the release. Spoilers for Donkey Kong Bananza. How awesome is this game? It's a phenomenal start to the Switch 2 roster, and a lengthy platformer at that, starring Donkey Kong, who hasn't had a new game for 11 years. I have thoughts on this game as a whole, and I want to dive into the more detailed lore of this title in another video while addressing all of the allegations of whether this is a prequel, soft reboot, and all of the above. But this is a K. Rool video, so first a quick setup. Donkey Kong, who is hungry for bananas, is mining for banandium, a crystal edible type of golden bananas that were probably dropped onto DK's planet by our boy Zananab, a stupid theory for another day. But as he's mining on Ingot Island with the rest of these monkeys, a group of Kongs known as the Void Company, led by Void Kong, arrive on the island with this huge boulder attempting to get to the planet core, to where apparently anyone can be granted a wish by an entity known as the Banandian Root. Void Kong's invasion sends Donkey Kong underground, where he meets Pauline, a 13-year-old singer who also fell into the crater. And Pauline has this special power of song on her side, with her singing being able to transform DK into different forms and also undo the magic of Void Kong. So the two work together to travel layer to layer deeper into the planet to make their own wishes on the Banandium Root, while stopping the Void Company in the process, which leads to this final showdown with Void Kong. And the situation seems hairy, with DK on the ropes at one point as Void Kong awakens the Root to make his wish. Wait, that's not the Banandium Root. That's K. Rool's big bulging belly! Our thick, scaly croc is back in a surprise appearance to take the role as the game's final antagonist. The game even goes on to explain him and the Kremling's absence this entire time was all because they got stuck on their way down to the planet core. But this doesn't necessarily come out of nowhere, it's hinted at throughout the game. On your journey, you'll encounter Cranky Kong, who explains he's pursuing a banana thief, and as you go along throughout the game, it's kind of clear that it's not Void Kong. So who is it? And to top it off, we find out the Void Company has been reviving dead Kremlings along the way to fight for them. These are the enemies we've been taking on this whole time. And in perfect K. Rool fashion, here he is hiding his appearance until the end of the game. Just like in the Donkey Kong Country trilogy, his reveal still remained a secret, even if in the back of your mind you had this feeling that he was around lurking. So with K. Rool knocking Void Kong out of the picture, he goes down toward the planet's core, where the rest of the living Kremlings await. And you can see they've erected this huge statue in his honor while they've probably been down here almost starving to death. Despite his late introduction in the game, Bananza does K. Rool justice, with him arriving at the Banandium Root before DK and Pauline, and uses its power to become King K. Rool. Oh, no name change this time? But his golden underbelly's reputation precedes it, with him being the meatiest boss in this game up to that point, taking several hits from DK before he finally goes down. The day is saved. With the Banandium Root in their possession, the two make their wishes, with Pauline opting to go home, while DK asks for more bananas. So why not both? The Root propels them to the surface on a pile of bananas, and as they approach, the credits roll. This was Donkey Kong Bananza. I won't even play up the joke here. The fake credits roll just like the original Donkey Kong Country, giving the fake out before K. Rool pursues the two, and everything after this point is just pure magic. They brought back his helicopter pack, and you have to fight him off while the depth counter you've been using to track your journey to the core goes up. An epic remix of Gangplank Galleon is playing in the background. Tears are almost streaming from my eyes during this moment. And to top it off, you're spit out in Pauline's home, New Donk City, from Super Mario Odyssey. But there's not much time to gawk. K. Rool immediately lays waste to the city, taking it over in seconds, covering it in rotten banandium. I wish this set piece were a little bit longer because it's just amazing seeing New Donk City transformed into this Kremlin K. Rool dedication. There's just so many Easter eggs posted everywhere, and the king is back and all this other stuff. It's just super cool, and you have to switch between Bananzas to get through this platforming section. All right, I'll save that for a dedicated video. All leading up to the final battle with him that takes place in a boxing ring near the top of a city building. The sheer faithfulness and respect to the entire series here is heartwarming. This is like an amalgamation of 44 years of Donkey Kong, and after playing these games for so long and covering them significantly in detail, all of this was just so beautiful to see. I mean, even as you're climbing up toward this building, it shows you the meters, which is a callback to the original Donkey Kong, which each level showing how high you are on the building. And in the background, they have this New Donk City track that changes whenever you're in a different Bananza form, while pieces of aquatic ambience are sprinkled in. This is just, it's insane. This is a love letter to everything Donkey Kong. K. Rool uses the Banandium root one more time to become even stronger, transforming into this monstrosity, K. Rool, King of Rot. And while I love his boss battle in Donkey Kong 64, this one takes the cake, with you really having to think through which Bananza powers you want to use to avoid his attacks while doing as much damage as possible, making K. Rool the most serious he's ever been as a villain in this series. And his blunderbuss returns just on crack this time, and yes, it still vacuums. It was a beautiful return to form, and in his defeat, DK gets to send K. Rool blasting off again. I feel like he got sent back into space after that one. And with all the love this character has gotten in recent years, I think it's apparent that K. Rool is here to stay as long as there are more Donkey Kong adventures in the works. And this move has expelled the theory that Nintendo has this disdain for the characters Rare brought into their universe many years ago. I'd argue if they ever felt that way, they don't have this sentiment now and have made these characters their own. Now we just need Diddy to clear the allegations so he can get his own game again.